And we is live. Right, according to StreamYard, it's 4 minutes, but I know. Never mind, we're late, so what? Gonna be a bit of a deep show today, guys. Hopefully nobody gets modern work offended. If you do, I don't really care because it needs talking about. We will talk about a few other things and probably have a bit of a giggle later on, but we're going to talk about the issue of the current Labour government, the cover-ups that have been going on regarding the Rotherham, Oldham and that part of the world gangs, and the fact that certain members of Parliament seem hell-bent to cover that up and even make it into something to belittle. So that's why Lisa is on, because Lisa knows a lot more about this than I do, having grown up in that area. It's good to have Lisa on. So, first of all, how is everybody?
Yeah, good.
Good.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, not too bad. I just wish the anti-inflammatories that I'm on at the minute worked, because I can barely feel my hands.
So you make it feel like someone else is doing it for you.
Bill, sit on one hand at a time, buddy.
You too.
No, this is.
I'm sure it's frustrating as all hell, but in all reality.
Yeah, because the inflammation in my neck and my hands is worse than normal. I've got a lot of nerve blocking, and it's causing all sorts of trouble.
Mr. Armitage is in, Melissa is in, which I believe is your cousin, Tyler. Fancy having to put up with you for a cousin. That is terrible. I feel really sorry for her.
Oh no, she got lucky. She was on the other side of the family that I didn't grow up with.
I don't know. I mean, this is probably going to confuse Melissa because obviously she's in America, so it's going to confuse her with the grooming gang thing that we've got going on in the UK. I wouldn't have thought you'd have heard much in America about it.
It depends how much they've been listening to Elon Musk.
Well, yeah.
Because he shouted about it in January.
Yeah, he did.
In fact, he's the one that's brought this back up to the forefront. This is why it's become a thing again.
Yep.
So
this show all came about because of that post on Facebook about which, oh, by the way, Facebook took down, because they don't want me posting things that they think are, what was it they put? It's not fact.
Oh, the Lucy Powell thing.
Well, it was fact because it was in Parliament. She spoke about it in Parliament in her words, so therefore it's fact.
No, it was worse than that.
It was a Channel 4, Radio 4 broadcast you were on called Any Questions. It's a little bit like Question Time, but on radio.
Yeah.
And that's where she said those comments. So it weren't even in Parliament.
But it's well documented.
Yeah.
Which means, no, it doesn't go against Facebook's guidelines because it is fact.
Yeah, but Facebook moved their guidelines.
Yeah.
As we know.
Almost as much as YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They moved their guidelines because they don't want us to put out facts on certain things. They want to cover the situation up.
I've been watching Black Belt Barrister the last couple of days on this issue because he's furious.
He's fuming. Yeah, and so am I, and agree with everything that he said.
Yeah,
everything.
It's utterly disgusting.
And he's played that radio clip several times, and you can hear she's barking over somebody trying to make a comment. She's not just saying something afterwards. She's barking over a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Which was, has anybody seen the Channel 4 documentary?
And that's literally all he asked.
Yeah.
The problem is this has been going on so long that covering all of this up. I think people, I don't want to say they get sick of it, but they're probably sick of hearing it. But the problem is it's just constant trying to take it out of the public's eye. Hiya,
Yeah.
Stephen. It's
Hi, Steve.
Hi,
It's-
Steve.
it's trying to belittle the people who are trying to bring this to the public eye.
Well, it's that, and then there's always the distraction tactic they use here. Oh,
Yeah.
this might be going on, but don't worry about that because X, Y, Z is happening over here. You should look over here and not worry about what's going on.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I shall let Lisa talk in a minute about what has gone on in
I mean,
or some of what went on with the Rotherham and Oldham and surrounding areas and the grooming gangs. We won't go into too many details, but there probably will be some details that may trigger people. If anybody has gone through any sort of abuse, then I apologise, but it's got to be spoken about. That's my view anyway. So
Yeah.
So I shall let Lisa talk a bit about the subject if she so wishes to.
Okay. So first thing I'll say is I wasn't abused. This is not me. They were friends of mine. I'm not going to go into details because it's not my story. All as I can do is give you my point of view because they were friends of mine. So I saw what they went through. I saw what their families went through. And the difficulties surrounding that throughout their lives until one life was ended, sadly.
Yeah.
The other, obviously people are still alive, and it's not fair for me to name names, which
No.
I'm not going to do, not unless they're politicians, which I really don't care about. The other thing that I will say is I don't give a shiny shite what colour your skin is, what religion you follow, where you were born, and what country you live in. If you break the law in any way, shape, or form, or if you harm another person, including a child, especially a child, then you deserve everything that this justice system in our country, which seems to fail children a lot,
Yes.
can throw at you. So I really, race doesn't come into it for me. Religion doesn't come into it for me. If you are a criminal, you deserve to be dealt with.
Yep.
If you've served your time, then you're fine by me. That's
You're safe.
it is. You're safe, yeah. You can.
Yeah, right. I mean, everybody knows I went to prison, violence and so on, but that's neither here nor there. But it is true what Lisa's saying. If you served your time, you've done it, that's it. Whatever.
Absolutely.
Well,
You've
especially if
been
you've
dealt
changed
with,
how you
been
live your
dealt
life
with by
after
the
that.
justice system. So I grew up in Rotherham. We know I live in Barnsley now. I've lived in Barnsley for a lot of years, but I was born and brought up in Rotherham. And went to school during the early 90s, in secondary school, early 90s, which is pretty much the age that these gangs target. So basically anybody from 13 years old. When I say anybody, white 13-year-old girls.
Mhm.
And a couple of friends of mine got involved. It's unclear how exactly they got involved because they were both from good families, not children's homes or anything like that. They were in good upbringing. One night I was invited along, and I didn't get there. I'd started to go there, but I didn't get there because the fear of retribution from my mum and dad was always in the background. So basically, I'd left Swinton on the bus. We'd gone to Rotherham. We'd walked from Rotherham bus station towards Masborough, which is another area of Rotherham, basically just like Swinton is. And I were getting a little bit angsty because of the time. I was on a curfew. My curfew was earlier than their curfew. Thank you, Mum and Dad, because it could have gone a really bad way.
Yeah.
And I started questioning where the hell we were going and what we were doing. And, we're just off up here to Masborough. Right. Well, I made the decision because if I'd have walked back to the bus station and missed the bus, I would have been over an hour late home. I made the decision at that point to turn round and walk back to the bus station and get the bus, so I was home on time. They didn't. They carried on. That was entirely up to them. I tried to get them because young, naive. I didn't really want to walk back in the dark on my own, but off they went and left me to it. Within a couple of months, they started to change.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Jay.
They started to distance themselves from friends, get into trouble with family. And it was pretty obvious that there was something going on, but nobody could get anywhere near to find out what was going on. It caused a lot of problems within their families. Dads were wanting to severely hurt certain people, which that's what dads do. That's not a problem as far as I'm concerned. That's a dad protecting his daughter. And it went on for years. We're not talking a couple of weeks. We're not talking months. We are talking years. They were 13 to 14 at the time of me turning around and going home. And the watching and the abuse continued, I would say, until 19, 20 years old. So this continued. Basically, once you were in, you were never getting out. That's their rhetoric.
Yeah.
It's you kind of graduate from being used for lewd purposes, sex, prostitution, to then being used for drug running and other illegal businesses, and also picking up other girls.
Yeah.
How involved those two girls got in that process, I'm not sure. What I can say is they were constantly watched. When they tried to get out of it, they were constantly watched. They would post people outside their house, visible, not even hidden, but they would literally stand across the street staring at their windows. And this was before the point where you were thinking, I'll get a Ring camera, CCTV. There was no such thing as that. And if they reported it, it was just, well, your lifestyle is like. No. They were led to that lifestyle. There is a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that used to be called a criminal offence of loitering with intent.
Well,
Hmm.
it still
So
is.
that in itself is an offence on its own.
Yeah, it still is, unless you are dealing with diversity. And that is the issue. Stop it for the good of diversity. Don't look into this, bury it because it will cause racial tensions. The fact that it was buried has caused racial tensions. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Take the race out of it, deal with them as criminals and punish them as criminals, and there is no race element.
Deal with it
There's
at
no
the
problem.
start. As soon as you know there is an issue, there is a problem, deal with it then.
Yeah.
Not allow it to continue.
So a lot of what's gone on, I've noticed, it always refers to back in the early 2000s. And I'm not sure why, because it was going on a long time before that. Like I said, I grew up in Rotherham in the early 1990s. I was at school, secondary school, between 90 and 95.
Yeah.
So that was going on during that time. I'm sure that wasn't the first time that it had happened. It's been going
Oh
on
no.
for
Oh, yeah.
decades before that. The difference is, I think, what's happened is it's as we're saying to you before the show. I think it's kind of it's gotten to a point where they've started this in small amounts, and then as they've got a foothold and realised that they can get away with more, then it's grown, and it's grown, and it's kept growing until it's basically a pandemic. That's what it is now at this point. Pandemic.
Yeah.
And they're saying it's a historical thing. It's not. It's still going on today. It's still happening. It's still being covered up. There are a lot of people working tirelessly to try and get these girls out of this lifestyle. It's still happening.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting. And I hope I never, ever run into one of them. That's all I can say. But, you know, that's... It angers me. It angers me because I know of my experiences, and the way that people dismiss it angers me even more, because there are genuine victims out there that have never received any justice for what they've been put through.
Yeah.
And they're still being taunted. They're still being charged down by their families. But, you know, these men's families are actually going after these victims.
You've got these genuine victims who are now probably late 20s, 30s, maybe even into their 40s. Or older, probably. The problem is this issue goes on and on and on. They get no help from anybody in power. Eventually, it gets such an issue with mental health, they only see one way out of that, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
And they decide to take their own life, which is, just put in a quick bit there, if somebody has been sexually abused or anything like this, or a member of their family, try and encourage them, or get yourself to speak to the right people. Not necessarily the police, but go and speak to somebody and get some help with it. For God, please, because if you allow it to continue in your own head, it is only going to do one thing to you. It really is going to destroy your life.
I mean,
it will.
Yeah. I have a very close friend, and she worked for Barnsley and Rotherham Social Services in the 90s and early 2000s, and she was on one of the team leaders of one of the teams trying to deal with it.
Was she on Risky Business?
Yeah.
Yeah. Risky Business was shut down.
It was.
To cover things up, basically.
Yeah. And she was forced to take early retirement, but it had done mental health so much damage.
Especially if you're dealing with that every single day.
Yeah.
hearing
Well,
the
it's a
story.
new case every
I-
day. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was 3 or 4 years after she retired before she started to really enjoy life,
Yeah.
because she just. So, I mean, there were victims even on the levels of people who were trying to do something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Hmm.
victims in the support network, including police. This is Matt sticking up for the police a bit here, including police officers who were forced out of a job
Yeah.
because they wanted to do the right thing, but people higher up in the system wanted it to be kept
Want to
quieter.
shut them down.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, in Greater Manchester, I mean, this was going on. It wasn't just Rotherham. This was going on all over the UK,
Yeah.
north and south, mainly in the north. But you know, there were Buckinghamshire Council
Oxford.
was dealing with it as well. Derby, Oxfordshire. In fact,
Oh.
the first known prosecutions, successful prosecutions, were in Derby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, which we call Southerners up here in Yorkshire, but technically it's still called Northern. You know, but this might actually help quite a lot of people. I looked at it, and when I read through it, I recognised everything. So, like when I said that there were certain things these girls started changing, and we didn't know why. And when I read this today, I'm now 46, so this is like 32 years later, and suddenly, light bulb moment, everything seemed to make sense. I kind of saw what was going on. So, in 1996, Barnardo's, which is a charity in the UK that deals with children in most forms, you know, abuse, homelessness. They're a children's charity basically. They did a report in Bradford called, if I remember correctly, "Victims Are Not Prostitutes," because that's what they were billed as.
Yeah.
And they noted that there was, from what they could see in Bradford at this time, there was 5 stages of grooming, from start to finish, and the evidence of the actual control side of things. So what they've actually said is, stage 1, a young girl of 13 is courted or dated by a man aged 18 to 24. The girl falls in love and believes that she's in a relationship, that this is a boyfriend.
Yep.
Stage 2, the boyfriend demands dependency from the girl, and she starts to isolate herself from friends and family. Stage 3, control is established, and now girl feels violence and retribution, and lines such as, "You will do this for me if you love me," become normal. Stage 4, drugs are used for compliance
Yep.
and control, because obviously if you get the girl addicted to drugs, he's the drug dealer, she keeps going back to him because it's free drugs.
Yep.
And basically for him, she's compliant, she'll do whatever. And then stage number 5, this is where prostitution begins, but they never ever refer to it as prostitution. So the term prostitution or prostitute is never used. The girl is asked, and I use that term loosely, asked to sleep with his mates, saying she'd be doing him a favour.
Yep.
And then she's passed around. She might be held in an apartment or a hotel for a couple of days and shared with hundreds of men over the course of a weekend.
There's also another one you can probably add in there, that they missed, which is the fact that a lot of the time that these girls are abused, it's videoed.
Yes.
The video is then shared about. And obviously with media, online media, those videos get shared to certain sites, illegal sites, and if they're underage by a long way, these girls, then the videos are sold on to make money for those people.
That would come under probably a more up-to-date, if they were to update it. This was written in 1996, so that really weren't a problem back then. It was pictures and home-style videos, but they were never put online because it didn't really exist. We didn't really have that until sort of late 90s, early 2000s. So I suppose when they wrote this report, when they were doing that weren't really a factor that they were considering. But yeah, today.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately today it's pretty common.
Yeah. But unfortunately, because all of the funding and things were shut down, you don't have updated reports to include things like that. But yeah, when I sort of looked at that, and I was like, that's it. It was just like a light bulb moment. I could see exactly these stages going on.
Yeah.
And it's as crystal clear as if it were yesterday for me. 30 odd years down the line, and it's like I woke up this morning and this happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Which
what bothers me is it's crystal clear to everybody who's listening and what us. This is crystal clear. Why is it not crystal clear to the people in authority?
Oh, it is.
And that's the whole point of this show. It's crystal clear to these people in power. It's crystal clear to police officers. Not all, and I'm not putting all police officers down. There are some very good police officers who have tried. They have tried to help.
Oh, they have, yeah. Maggie Oliver being one of them.
And they've basically been told, shut the fuck up, do as you're told, or you're out of a job.
I mean, Maggie Oliver, she's a prominent figure in all of this now. She was a police officer for Greater Manchester.
Right, right.
Shrek. She was a police officer for Greater Manchester Police who was basically moved into one of these task forces to do some research and look at some gang activity, some grooming gang activity, and write reports on it in order to get more manpower. She did all that, and she took one of the girls. This is actually in that Channel 4 documentary. I highly recommend you go and watch it. It's called Grooming, a National Scandal. She took one of the girls on a drive around so she could point out the specific businesses, the apartments, the places that they were picked up from, various different areas as part of her investigation. And all of a sudden the girl freaked out and said, "That's his car," and then bobbed down in the car seat so she couldn't be seen. Maggie Oliver took the registration number of that car, went back to her office and run a PNC check on it.
Yeah.
A day later, Internal Affairs phoned her up and said, "Why did you run a PNC check on that registration number?" So she explained everything. She says the car has been identified as part of an investigation that I'm taking part in. XYZ went through it all. And then they said, drop it, because he's part of another investigation. We're actually looking into him for another investigation of other things that he's been reported for. And he was a GMP police officer. He was actually in. So if you want to know why it's being covered up by the police, it's because the police were involved. Shortly after that, Maggie Oliver went on compassionate leave because her husband took ill. And when she come back, it was called Project Augusta. Project Augusta had been benched completely.
Yep.
The files had disappeared. She couldn't access anything. It was completely locked down.
How strange.
It is.
And that police officer was never dealt with, surprisingly. Still to this day, he's not a police officer anymore, but he was never actually charged or dealt with at all. He was just off you pop.
And there's not just one case of this shit going on.
Oh no, they're in.
There's lots
they're
of
in.
cases.
I am absolutely certain, although I have no proof, but in my mind, I am absolutely certain that shit happened in Rotherham.
Well, I'll give you another case of this happening with a police officer. Holly Wells and Jessica who got killed by the wonderful Mr. Ian Huntley.
Yeah.
The officer in charge of that case, while he was talking to the parents of the murdered and abused children, had his computer taken. They found 147,000 Section A paedophile images.
Yeah.
And he was a chief inspector at the time. And all he got was he lost his job.
Yeah.
He didn't lose his pension, just lost his job.
Yeah.
Away you go. And that's another one. There's lots of cases of police being involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm under no illusions whatsoever that there were police officers in Rotherham
Oh, yeah.
that were involved in trafficking these girls. You know, in fact, the latest report that was done, which is not a full report, they identified 1,400 girls in Rotherham alone that had been abused. Now, if they're identifying 1,400, I could quite easily and comfortably double that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, easily.
In Rotherham. Rotherham isn't that
Just
big a
in Rotherham.
place.
Just in Rotherham.
Yeah, it's scary.
You know, but you're not talking just like one time period. It's, you know, you're talking decades.
Yeah.
There's no way is it only 1,400. Absolutely not, because it was, you know, if you've got like my scenario, for example, what happened with me and my friends, there was, you know, 2 girls there that was taking me. If one girl took another girl and they all did that, you've doubled your numbers straight away.
Yeah.
And the harsh thing about all this is those girls that did that were charged and in most cases successfully convicted of solicitation and taking other girls to be groomed. They were the ones that were charged, arrested and convicted for grooming and then put on the sex offenders register for life.
Yep.
Which then impacts them later on. But the men that were abusing them never got arrested, weren't even questioned.
Nope.
No.
They were arrested in their houses and they weren't even questioned. Like, what the ever-loving fuck?
Well,
Seriously.
exactly. I mean,
it's beyond belief. And again, you know, one of those girls that are in this documentary, she's one of the ones that spent 5 years in prison. She went to a children's prison because she was only 15 at the time. She served 5 years in total. I don't know what she was sentenced to. When she was 18, she was moved into the adult side of the prison,
Yep.
naturally. And when they found out what she was in for, automatically she became a nonce.
Yep.
And it wasn't a pleasant further 2 years
Nope.
for her. When she came out, she had to be registered on the sex offenders register. She's now got children of her own. And because she has to be CRB checked, she cannot go on school trips with her children.
It's ridiculous. And all of this, skipping a few sections of the whole system, comes back to one certain person. The man in charge of the CPS at the time.
Yes, who happens to be our current Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And if we're going to talk about him, I have got to say this. Whether I know, right? If this show gets me banned, so be it. I don't care. I am convinced that he is involved, not just with the cover-up. I am convinced he is involved on a more hands-on approach to this grooming. Possibly even he is a paedophile. Because just looking at the man makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
There is something very, very, very dodgy about him, about his puppeteer master, Tony Blair. And they all want to cover up all of this. They want it to go away because somewhere at the bottom of all of this is the proof. Somewhere is the proof that proves they're involved.
Well, that's it. If it didn't circle back around, why would you try to cover it up this bad?
This is why they've got Facebook trying to take posts down. They've got
it runs deep and it goes back years. So speaking from a Rotherham point of view, because that's obviously the one that I know more about, you have the Rotherham area is part of what is known as the Red Wall. That is basically the colour red as in Labour government as we have now, because it was a high mining and industrial area. So we had steelworks, we had coal mining, there was a lot of industry in Yorkshire in particular. Same as any other place, really. But what I mean by Red Wall is that there is, if you look on a map and you put the colours of what parties were in charge at the time, there is a distinct line of red across Yorkshire, which is known as the Red Wall. Rotherham is still part of that Red Wall. It's not changed. It's never changed. So when people start saying, oh, Conservatives were in charge at the time, yes, they were in central government, but local governments, bearing in mind at the time, there was no such thing as social media. So what we know is that this was just a local problem.
Yeah.
This wasn't a national problem. This was just a local problem because we didn't speak to each other because we had no internet. You know, now we get to know what's going on at the opposite side of the world within seconds of it happening. That's not how it was back then. You know, you were beholden to local newspapers. That's it.
Yeah, and this is one of the things where groups like social services are ruled by local government. They are not a national thing.
Yeah.
Which means it's the local government that shut social services down. It wasn't done from central government. No,
it wasn't.
And
it was always done from local funding.
And the same applies to the police. Because the main precept to their money comes from local government.
Yeah. Council.
Which means anything political, it is done from local government. It's not the central government. Yeah, they may have some of the big funding bits, but
Yeah.
the control for the place, the control for social services, the control for some of the other groups that were trying to help was local government.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's never changed hands. It's always been a Rotherham Council Labour run.
Yeah.
It's never actually changed as long as I can remember, because I was born in '79. That's when Maggie Thatcher got in Conservatives. It was still always a Labour-run council. It's never faltered from that. It might do next time, but at the moment, it's still Labour. When I were at school at that time, you had councillors in charge that were identified as part of the cover-up. One of them went into hiding. He's a man I don't like very much. It's called Ken Wyatt. He went into hiding after this came out because they were out for blood. John Healy, still the MP for Rotherham, has been for a lot of years, and he just tends to stay very quiet. There's a reason he's staying very quiet, and he was part of sending messages to the police directly from Gordon Brown, for example, to say, shut them up. There were actually messages, direct messages, that were found from Gordon Brown stating that he wanted it burying. Like, what the like, there aren't enough what the fuck's in my body at the moment to even cover that.
No.
Because as the Prime Minister of this country, your job is to keep your country and its residents safe.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest areas of your job. And when you are throwing a minimum of 1,400 girls under the bus, what the fuck?
I'm not denying that, Shrek. There are also Conservative MPs who are involved in these paedophile rings, okay?
And Liberals. And
absolutely. They're in all walks of life. But this is specifically about the grooming gangs of... I'm going to say it, even though I don't think religion and race are anything to do with it, but Pakistani Muslim gangs, because that is what it predominantly was. And it was covered up based on the fact that they were Pakistani Muslims in the good of diversity. And that was actually said. I don't care. You've got kids being physically harmed. And
well, exactly. Who cares where you're from? You're still doing what you shouldn't be fucking doing.
Exactly. Mentally harmed. Some of these girls can't even talk about their experiences. They are so traumatized. And the reason that they can't talk about it is because they've had no help. Because they weren't believed or because they weren't helped at the time. There's been no funding for mental health. There's been no team set up for them to, go to rape crisis and various other things. They've literally just been chucked to one side and forgotten about.
Yeah.
Well, and think too, Lisa, if what we're assuming is what it is, and higher ups and government are doing these things, these girls don't want to speak out anyway.
No.
You've got God willing, what could happen to you from a legal standpoint if they say you did something you did or didn't do to keep everything quiet.
A lot of them have been charged with other crimes. A lot of them have served time and have a criminal record. A lot of them are not with us anymore because they've either been killed by the grooming gangs to keep them quiet, or they've been killed themselves because they can't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
Be that through drug abuse because they were supplied, or be that by taking their own life purposefully. Whichever way you look at it.
On top of that, though,
go on, mate.
It's only a few weeks ago, Starmer said he can't do anything about the grooming gangs because there's no evidence.
Oh, there's plenty of evidence.
Bullshit.
There's plenty of evidence.
Oh, we know there's plenty of evidence, but this is what Starmer said. Was it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago now?
Let me put it another way to you. This is my thought on Starmer. Starmer is a puppet. He is a fucking moron. Okay? He is not intelligent.
He's not in charge either.
He's not in charge. Okay? He is being controlled by other people in the background. Those people being the likes of Tony B. Liar. Blair is in the background pulling the strings, right? He knows what went on. He knows that there's evidence. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got fucking evidence sat on his computer to control certain people to get what he wants. He is a liar, a devious bastard. Not going on about it, but you look at what happened on weapons of mass destructions, people who were investigating it accidentally slit their own wrist. Oh dear.
Yeah, they were left-handed.
I'm not going to turn it into an 8-hour show because I'll get ranty about that. But the point is that members of Parliament, forgetting which way they sway, are involved in paedophile rings and grooming gangs.
And
without a doubt.
That is very true, Jack. He does. Starmer has hidden the evidence, a lot of the evidence to do with people like Savile and Rolf Harris and several other celebrities.
The whole Jimmy Savile.
But because they did a lot of charity work, that made it okay.
That applies to both of the ones named. Because Rolf Harris did all the animal charity stuff, didn't they?
Yeah.
I wondered where you were going with that when you went, Rolf Harris did all the animals. I was like, no, Bill. No.
But you see, this is the thing when we talk about when Starmer says there is, they can't be brought to justice because there's no evidence. Where was the evidence apart from somebody's word against Rolf Harris's? Because it was historical. If you can dig far enough, you will find what you need to convict somebody.
Starmer wants to keep it quiet.
He wants to keep it quiet because he's involved, and a lot of his colleagues are involved.
Yeah.
And now Lucy Powell saying what she said basically puts her at the forefront of it because it makes her look like she don't give a shit.
The thing is, in one way, she's done Starmer a favour. Because if it does come down to it and somebody needs to fall on the sword, she's perfect for it.
But at the moment, he's supporting her. I wonder why.
Because it takes the slack off her hand.
I'm not saying that, and I know with the Rotherham thing, I've heard stories of relatives and of parents and so on wanting to go out and take revenge on these people. And I fully understand that. Oh, I get that. Any normal man would, if it was their daughter. Definitely.
One of the girls that had been sort of cooped up and let's call it what it is, kidnapped for about a week. The dad knew where she was because he'd been following her, so he knew what house she was being kept in. He went to the police, and the police said it's her lifestyle. We can't do anything about it. So putting it on the girl basically. That it's her fault because of the lifestyle she's got. Again, not the lifestyle that she's been forced into.
Right. Let's just pass blame onto her.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the father basically said, if you don't do it, I will. If you don't go and get my daughter out of that house, I'm going to go and do it. At that point, he was threatened with arrest himself. He says that will, if you went in there and any trouble came of it, you would be the one arrested because you're entering their house. It's not your property. And if your daughter doesn't want to go with you, it would be classed as kidnap. Again, like I said, there are not enough what the fuck's in my body at the moment to cover all of this situation because, well, had that been my daughter, I would have still gone because I would fall sword for my child.
Oh, I would have gone to prison for it.
Yeah, exactly, because that's what parents do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
But the police, you tell the police are supposed to be there to protect, to serve and protect. And when you're telling them that a child is in trouble and being tortured, physically harmed, sexually abused, and
or even anything close to that. I mean,
yeah, anything at all close to that, and you require assistance from the police to help stop that, and they're saying, well, it's her own fault because of her lifestyle. There's nothing we can do. Quite frankly, I think I'd have been going and spending some time at, as it was then, Her Majesty's pleasure.
Yeah.
But the copper would have been going with me. That's where I'd have been with that one.
Yeah. Because the thing is, they were ignoring the fact that girl you're talking about, she was 14 at the time, which meant she was underage.
Exactly. And this is another thing that kids seem to get skipped over.
Which meant it was a place matter.
Yeah. This is what gets skipped over time and time again. If you are under the age of consent, which is in this country 16, you cannot legally agree to have relations with anybody.
Yeah.
So that's classed as rape. And therefore, you go and you get that child out of that situation.
Well, under British law.
I'll be right back, guys. Day break.
Okay, but under British law, but the problem is this is not being dealt with as British law.
No.
It's being dealt with as Muslim and Sharia law. These people are allowing the grooming gangs, Muslim grooming gangs, to take over. And I don't want people to think, oh yeah, Matt's right wing. He's a BMP. No. What I'm saying is, our laws are British laws. If you adhere to our laws, right. If you don't, then you've got to answer for those things.
Exactly.
The same as if I went to a Muslim country, I would have to answer for their laws.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Our laws are in place no matter what side of the political spectrum is in charge at the time. It doesn't matter whether it's right or it's left. The laws are there and they are constant.
Yeah.
If they are not being adhered to, then you need to be dealt with.
Yes.
And that's not happening. That's been flatly refused in some cases.
Yeah.
Now, does it fall into a political problem? To a certain degree, yes, because it's the politicians that have gotten involved to help cover it up.
Yeah.
But that's the only political part of it. Other than that, it's just arseholes breaking the law in the worst possible manner and causing severe torture and pain to children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll break it down to something that simple.
I know that, Facebook and YouTube and X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, we shouldn't use that word. We can't use that word. The one starting with
word.
P.
Oh, the paedophile
Well,
word.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah, we shouldn't say
we shouldn't use
paedophile.
And we
None.
shouldn't use rape either.
I don't
At the
give a
end of the
shit.
day, what
Call it what it is.
people are
But-
doing is raping underage children.
That's
It is-
paedophilia.
I mean, yeah, it's worse than that in a way, because it's almost government sanctioned now.
Yeah,
And that's the worst part about it. That is the worst part about it. Our government are supposed to have the British people and the residents of this country, because they're not all British, best interests at heart, and to protect, they are there to make sure that we don't fall into poverty and that we have jobs and good health care, and they're supposed to do this for us, and it's just not happening. But when it comes to people breaking the law and they just walk out, like we can move away from this particular subject and go to somebody like Mike Amesbury.
Yeah.
Mike Amesbury, Labour MP from Runcorn, got drunk and battered one of his constituents on camera.
Yep.
He pled guilty in court. He was sentenced to 10 weeks in prison.
Yep.
Day later, he appealed that, and all of a sudden, he gets time served with the rest of the sentence suspended.
Yeah.
Labour MP. Need I go any further? And this is where two-tier justice comes into it. It's like one rule for one and one rule for another. Because if that had been somebody that was unknown and had no money, you'd have been serving. It would have been a lot more than 10 weeks for starters. You'd have been serving your time.
I watched the footage as we all did with that. If it had been the guy got in his face, he punched him or pushed him, whatever, punched him once, that was it. You'd have said, okay, he hit him once, he shouldn't have really hit him, but,
He didn't. He carried on going. He kept going back to him.
The bloke was on the floor and he kept hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting. To me, that wasn't just assault, that's a Section 18.
Yeah.
Wounding with intent, which is what he did. That was intentionally causing pain.
Yeah.
How he got, we know how he got off with it, but, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, I just want to mention something, because there are people who watch this on catch up and might think this is not something we should be talking about, but it leaves people with a lot of hidden mental distress.
Absolutely.
It destroys lives mentally.
You have seen, from the way that I talk about this in private, I'm kind of holding it together quite well at the moment, but how I've spoken about this in private, how upset I get. I wasn't the one that was being abused, it was my friends. And how that still affects me 32 years later.
Yeah.
So if that happens to me when I wasn't directly involved, imagine what it does to the girls that were directly involved.
Yeah.
And where they're at.
That's the psychological.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also other things, because of things that were done that would have caused injuries to
physical,
which I will not talk about, because that's going too far.
Yeah, I could. Well, I've told you. I've already told you. I'm not going to go into it online. Like I said, it's not my story to tell.
Use your imaginations if you want to, just think on that. Yeah,
it's nasty. It's nasty, guys. That's all you need to know.
Horrible.
Think of the
Really
worst thing that you can
disgusting.
possibly think of, and then times it by 15.
You know,
But
Yeah.
this does tie into mental health seriously, because
Yeah.
we're not just talking about a few thousand women and girls. We're talking about tens of thousands now.
And not just the girls themselves, but the
Mm.
family. You know, the families that were
Yeah.
involved, the parents that feel helpless and guilty for allowing that to happen, even though they didn't allow it. You know, they've
Mhm.
kind of got it into their heads that they allowed that to happen, that they couldn't protect their children. And that must be an horrendous feeling for
Yeah.
anybody to have
Yeah.
when you feel helpless and feel unable to protect your own child. Because as a parent, first and foremost, that is your job, to protect your child. And
Yeah.
somebody takes that away from you, and you're helpless. And if you've got official bodies like the police that are refusing to help you do your job as a parent and protect your child when you need them to do that, you're backed against a wall. You're in a corner. What are you supposed to do?
Well, if you're going legally, your next call would be to go to somebody in local government.
Well, yeah,
That's a good
except
idea.
for
Well,
that's no
Yeah.
good, because
Yeah.
they were also involved.
okay, right, I've got it. We'll go to the top. We'll write a letter to the Prime Minister.
Oops.
Oh, I fucked it there
Okay.
as well.
Oh, fuck,
I'm
yeah.
sorry to be making light of this. I'm trying to make it just a little bit lighter without taking the piss. But the fact is, and you've got to think, these aren't cases from history. There's still cases going on now.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
there'll be cases, unfortunately, that will happen in the future.
Mm.
That's the scary bit. There's going to be more cases of
Yes.
children getting abused.
Because these gangs have not been and are not going to be stopped.
Exactly. And they're not going to stop themselves. And the thing is, I know a
No.
lot, I spend a lot of time on X, as it's now known, Facebook, and various other groups, TikTok and what have you. And there is so much of the idiocy, because that's all I can call it, when a white grooming gang gets sent down, found guilty and sentenced, and they put their pictures up and like, oh, the right aren't talking about this. I wonder why. Well, the reason that it's not just the right, nobody is talking about that is because, do you know what? They've been caught, they've been charged, they've been put through a trial, they've been found guilty, they've been sentenced, and they are now under the justice system serving time.
Great.
That's not what's happening in this case.
Mm.
They have walked, they've got away with it, and they continue to get away with it, and that is the issue.
If the white paedophiles are arrested, charged, imprisoned, blah, 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 whatever, and dealt with, I don't see any point in bringing them back up. They're nobody now. They're
No,
nothing.
exactly.
They don't exist.
Yeah.
They'll get prison justice, which is the best justice that can be served
They-
on
Mhm.
those dirty, rotten, disgusting bastards. I'm sorry, but that's what they are.
They are.
But
Yeah.
not only
Mm.
that once that has happened, that process, the victims get support.
Yes.
Through the courts, they have a
Mhm.
victim support system. They get mental health support. They get, advocacy support. All of this they're entitled to, that these girls are being denied.
Well, they're
Yeah.
prostitutes.
They get nothing.
They're prostitutes.
Exactly.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm getting a bit choky.
They've been
No.
labelled as prostitutes.
Exactly. You've labelled these girls as prostitutes, as soliciting other girls into it.
Yeah.
Not only have you destroyed their life from 13 or 12, 13 till they finished being abused, which is bad enough. The rest of their life after that is also destroyed because of what's hanging over them. And because it's a sexual charge, a sex charge, it will be hanging over them for the rest of their lives.
Mm.
So you've destroyed their entire life.
Exactly. I mean, like I said
That is
earlier,
twisted.
one of the girls in that documentary, she said, you know, she can't even do something simple like go on a school trip with her children because she has to be CRB checked
All right, because you're labeled at that point for the rest of your life.
or DBS checked. Yeah. So, you know, she's labelled. They just see sex offenders register, and instantly she cannot go on those trips because she's around children.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all of these girls that were charged and found guilty and served time for these offences. They really, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, who Jess Phillips, the safeguarding minister, what works under, should be looking at those cases and overturning those convictions.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, because they were children. You know, how the hell does a child solicit someone else for underage sex?
Just to add a little bit more
For somebody
fuel,
else.
a little bit more
Well,
fuel to the fire.
Well,
That's
what
what
intent
you
did the
take.
adult have at the same time if they were able to be coerced into whatever by a
Yeah.
girl of that age? You know, you obviously had something in your own mind to say that's what you wanted to do.
But the adults are safe, though, Tyler. The adults are safe because the Prime Minister, as wonderful as he is, and that is very much sarcasm, by the way, has basically said that they are untouchable because there's no evidence.
Which
There is evidence. There's plenty of evidence. It's just being buried.
But
It
there's no evidence that you can take these
segues
girls.
perfectly into this.
Go on, then.
Anybody remember the Manchester Arena bombing?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
The individual who committed it, who is currently imprisoned in Belmarsh Prison.
Slight correction there. He was involved in planning it. The one that committed it is dead because he had the bomb on his back.
Yep. 3 brothers. Okay?
Yeah.
3 of them. One purchased the stuff to make the explosives. One constructed it and blew himself up. Oh dear. Say hello to your 7 fucking virgins. And the third one, it has now come out, who is currently in prison as well, attacked prison staff with boiling oil.
And
Yes.
knives. And knives.
Knives.
And do you know how long extra he's got on his sentence for that? For attacking 3 prison officers? 3 months.
However, I've also heard that he is headed to Robert Maudsley's old cell because Robert Maudsley is being moved. Robert Maudsley is being moved.
I'm glad Robert's out.
Yeah, where they've put him might not be glad that he's out because what they've done, I can't remember the prison that they've moved him to. He's not in Wakefield anymore.
It's Whitemore.
Right. So they've moved him there and they've put him on the VP wing.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting.
That's going to be really interesting.
This is a man who was sentenced for murdering a paedophile.
Yeah.
Once, outside. He murdered another 3 inside. One
And that's
by
how he
grabbing
ended up in the
his leg.
cell that he was in.
He picked one of them up by his ankles and swung him round the cell and bashed him off everything in the cell. I was lucky enough when I was in Wakefield to be sat in the fucking doctor's office with him. He's actually a really, really nice guy. Scouser.
As long as you're not that way.
You're not a nonce.
Yeah. But
I'm sorry, that's how I'd put nonces in with people like that. Problem solved.
So
Yeah.
it's
Natural selection.
I'm guessing they've kind of like come up with the theory that now he's in his early 70s, he's probably not much of a threat to anybody. Whoops.
No, he's got even less reason than he already had to stay on the good side.
Exactly. What's
Robert
he got to
Maudsley,
lose? He's never getting out. What on earth has he got to lose?
Robert Maudsley has already said to his nephew, I don't want to be released.
No.
He doesn't want to come out. He doesn't care. He's got nothing to come out for. He spent his entire life in prison. And he's already said previously to that, if he can take a few more paedophiles out, he will.
Basically, he's quite happy to die trying.
I hope he doesn't die trying. I hope he just kills a few more of them, personally.
They'll just put him in another solitary confinement if he does it again and survives. But, you know, it is what it is. But, yeah, apparently this Manchester bomber is heading to his old cell.
Oh, dear. What a shame.
Basically, keep him out of the way of humanity altogether. Take him away from it.
The joke was also that the mother's credit card was the one they used to buy the explosive stuff with. The whole family are involved.
Yeah.
There's the proof with Muslims. Or, sorry, I'll take that back. Muslim extremists of that.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to make that clear.
Not all Muslims are like that. Some Muslims are very, very nice people. Some are very, very nice people. Unfortunately, there is an element of bad ones who are really bad.
Yeah.
Really, really bad.
That's the unfortunate thing. Those bad ones, which is in reality quite a small proportion.
Yeah.
Are so bad that they don't deserve to be breathing.
But, you know,
I'm
again,
sorry,
that's the same
I would happily bring back the death sentence and be the one that carried it out for them.
Yeah, I mean that's the same as what I said earlier when I said I don't care what colour you are. It basically goes to all races, all religions, including Catholicism, because they're just as bad. If you do this shit, justice needs to be served.
Yeah.
What form that justice takes is entirely up to what situation you are in at the time. Hopefully, it's not vigilante justice, which is starting to rise. Because that's a lot harsher. But that's because our own legal justice system is not doing their job.
No.
They're not taking care of it. And so you've got these groups. An early form of that was EDL.
Yeah.
You know, they started getting really, really nasty, but they were pulling everybody into it, not just the ones that needed to be targeted.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they went the wrong way about it.
Well, let's be honest, most of the EDL are not exactly the most intelligent of individuals.
Well, I don't think they actually exist anymore. They've disbanded a long time ago, but which was probably not the worst idea ever.
Well, no, but somebody else will crop up at some point.
I mean, I at the time, you know, when I moved away from Rotherham, I moved to West Yorkshire. So I lived in Wakefield for a time and then moved to Batley and then eventually to Edmund White. Shrek will probably know exactly where I'm talking about when I say those things because he's in West Yorkshire. And I frequented shopping in Dewsbury quite a lot, which is highly populated by Muslim culture.
Yep.
And you always knew when the EDL were doing a march through Dewsbury because their shutters on every single shop were down. everything was shut.
Yeah.
Even the pubs started shutting because of the amount of problems they would cause. All the shops actually started putting metal shutters on the shops' fronts because they were just going past and smashing windows for no reason whatsoever. Couldn't just walk past. They'd walk past and they'd kick the windows and punch them. Just mindless idiocy, quite frankly, because these shop owners, what they've done? Nothing.
So right,
You
they
know
have,
what I mean?
fuck all to do with any of it.
Yeah, exactly. And they were never held to account, just like other things. So I'm not exactly sad that they were,
No, I'm not.
disbanded. Like I said,
even Tommy Robinson got away from the EDL.
Yeah, he left. He left because it wasn't the group that he intended to start. Now, Tommy Robinson is a controversial figure, and a lot of people disagree with him fundamentally, but there are early videos of Tommy Robinson when he first started the EDL. And he's saying things like, we're here to, gather everybody, black and white unite. And, there's not a racist bone in his body, but he's sort of thrown on that bandwagon just to try and, pull him into that and to turn people against him, which in some respects it's worked. In others, people are now starting to see the truth again because of the internet. But there are, what actually happened there from what I've read, not personal experience, thankfully, but from what I've read is that when the BNP was dying, British National Party, there were a few people from there infiltrated and joined into the EDL and then started turning it back to what the BNP was when it was strong. Because the EDL started to take over what the BNP was doing. As the BNP weakened, the EDL got stronger. So they moved. And when Tommy realised that he couldn't actually control what was going on, he left.
Yeah.
He gave it up and he just, right, you have it. I'm off. You've got to give him credit for that because that was his baby. That was something that he'd worked on for a lot of time, a long time, and predominantly to bring news, basically to put the grooming situation into the forefront. That's what the EDL was set up for.
It was.
It was originally United People of Luton. I
think
Tom's from Luton, and his cousin disappeared at the hands of one of these grooming gangs in Luton. This is where he got involved with it. So he set up the United People of Luton to enlighten people about these grooming gangs and what was going on. Again, not realising that it wasn't just a local problem. When it became evident that it wasn't just a local problem, that's when United People of Luton turned into the EDL and it became an English Defence League. So that's where that started. But he just got railroaded.
Oh.
Totally railroaded by the same people that we're talking about that was burying evidence. They didn't want him talking about this stuff for diversity's sake.
The issue now is
become a racist.
They're never ever going to let him be.
No.
Even if he comes out of prison, they let him out. He comes out of prison, promises never to do anything like it again. They're never ever going to let him be free.
No. Absolutely not.
Not a chance.
I mean, he's in prison at the moment because he pleaded guilty to contempt of court. He was sentenced to 18 months, I think. Could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
Which is a lot for contempt of court. So they intended to keep him.
Yeah.
But back to Robert Maudsley, has been in solitary confinement for God knows how many years. Well over 40 years now, I think.
I think it's 46.
Yeah. They have done that to Tommy Robinson. They've put him straight into solitary confinement.
Yep.
He can't even talk to his kids on the phone.
Nope.
So they're trying to break him down mentally while he's in there.
And it is working.
When he
By all
comes out.
accounts. It is working. He is starting to.
It's only contempt of court. They've got to let him out sooner or later. And if he's in confinement, he's not really breaking any other rules to get extra time.
It is breaking him down. There are reports, though, that have come out that he is starting to. He's not handling it well.
No.
Well, most people wouldn't at all.
Every time he's put to prison, he is kept in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
It's got to.
He's a political prisoner.
Yeah.
Mm.
The only way he's going to ever stay free is by leaving the country and never ever returning to this country, and that's what they're trying to get him to do. Either that or to off himself.
Yeah, that likely they're spying on his calls to his lawyers and stuff like that. So it's.
He was actually in court, and the prison cut his Zoom call off with his lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the judge, he was trying to appeal being in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
And the judge said, judge found out that he wasn't allowed to have a private conversation with his lawyer to discuss things that they needed to discuss, that they were listening into his calls.
Yeah.
So the judge ordered there and then a recess so that they could go away and have this conversation with Tommy. And then they come back and his Zoom was silenced. It was on mute, so he couldn't physically speak.
Yeah.
So he'd written a note and held it up to the camera saying, "They cut my call off." Whilst he was on the call to his lawyer in recess, a judge sanctioned call. So basically, the judge had given orders. The prison had actually broken those orders and cut his call off. And Tommy still lost.
Yeah.
This is the problem. It's like, it's contempt of court. If you want to keep him locked away, then put him on home confinement. Put him on a tag. He cannot. He's got to be at home 24/7. At least he can have people coming in through the door to see him. Serve the rest of his sentence. But he's not going to be out on the street.
I don't see how you can keep him in prison, but the problem is the government are making up their own rules.
Attorney General, they're keeping him in there it's the Attorney General that's doing this.
Yeah.
Which should probably come from higher up.
Oh.
Yeah. Same as Conservative Attorney Generals were doing exactly the same with him. He is a thorn in any government. They don't like him. They know he's speaking truth.
Yeah.
They don't want him to speak truth. And the only way to stop him doing that is to confine him.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even go and see him without, you've got to sign an NDA before you go to see him.
Yeah.
Saying that you won't discuss anything that's been discussed. That's if they let you in. A lot of people try to get in to see him and they won't allow them in because they're from media outlets, for example.
If you've got a criminal history, it's a media, you fucked it.
Even his ex-wife can't go in and see him.
It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I don't agree with everything Tommy Robinson says. I don't.
Absolutely not.
Sometimes
But it's unfair what's happening to him. definitely another example of two-tier justice, because if that was anybody else that was unknown that had done exactly the same thing as what he's done, which was basically to show a video that had been shown all over the world already.
Yeah.
When he put it out, which was against, he pleaded guilty. It was against court's direct orders. You know, it doesn't matter if somebody else is doing it. That doesn't mean you can do it because the court's ordered you not to. If it had been anybody else, they'd have got community service.
Yeah.
That's how crazy it is. Go and clean up a few crisp packets off Side at Road for a few hours. Done and dusted.
Yeah, but the difference would be the side of the road would probably be some sort of motorway so that someone took them out.
Well, yeah, but it would still be outdoors. You know, like Matt's just said, I don't agree with everything that he says. Sometimes he can say some really fucking stupid stuff, but it brings a lot of issues to the forefront, and these are issues that the government don't want you to know about, like the persecution of Jewish people, for example. That's nothing to do with grooming gangs. That's nothing to do with Muslims, Islam. Nothing to do with anything like that, but because the government don't want you to know about it. And the person that he actually interviewed in that documentary is dead now.
Yep.
He was killed for being a Jew. So what he was saying in that documentary wasn't exactly a lie. But, you know, it's Tommy Robinson, so...
That's the issue, though. The government knows that there are people out there who know more. And there's still more out there that people know.
There is.
There is so much stuff out there that is just hidden from us. And I'll be honest, for you, Tyler, it's even worse.
I was just going to bring that up. Like, look at just Google results.
You can't see Canada.
Or think about that video link that we watched the other day that you tried to send him like a month or two ago, and it's restricted by GeoLock.
Which is stupid because it's a music video from the 1970s.
Yeah.
Right.
Donald Trump doesn't want you to be able to see Canada. Here's an idea. Drive to Niagara Falls, look across the big watery thing in the middle. You can see Canada. It is there still.
Yeah.
Trump to me is dangerous.
Now, I know we're all pretty much on the same basis as far as religion goes. None of us are organized religion based by any means, really. But Trump decided in the last couple of days to use AI to post a photograph of himself as the new pope. Not only did he post this on his personal account, the White House personal account reposted it. So now you've got Catholics everywhere. A little bit more than just upset.
So to them it'll be blasphemy.
Well, that's exactly what's being called. Disrespectful and blasphemous for what he's doing. I mean, he's already announced that he's, what did he say, King of America and King of the world.
Yeah, you're my fucking king.
Not mine.
Well, it's a king asshole. But yeah,
there's a little issue with this thing that he wants Canada to become an American state. Canada is part of the British Commonwealth.
Yeah.
It has a king. That king happens to be the same king as what we've got. So is he going to just completely obliterate us in order to get Canada? Because,
yeah, but he's trying. He wants to push for the UK to be the 52nd state, doesn't he?
Okay.
I would 51st.
I liked 51st State. It's a good film, that was.
It was a good film.
Well, you see that he's trying to change.
Continent.
He's also trying.
Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking over you as well. Sorry. He's also trying to change the American Constitution so that it can have a third term.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't agree with. I think I've said this before. I think we should have a maximum term of 2 terms for our politicians, because I don't think career politicians are healthy at all.
No.
But Christ Almighty, I don't think America should ever change from 2 to 3 terms.
Well, no. We got that issue. So he's trying to have more time to cause more issues, And he's been saying that all the tariffs were put in place to fire back at other countries for the tariffs they put out on us and all that bullshit, right? First off, the percentages are nowhere near comparable from one to the other. They're not. And he's obviously making it to where everyone, okay, look at these countries, look at China. They're causing you to, all this issue. Amazon has actually made it a new statement that they have set up to where you'll have your list of products, you'll have the price of your product, and then in another color they'll have plus for tariff. So you exactly know what you're paying for the product and what you're paying for in tariff as a citizen. It's not the government paying for the tariffs; it's the citizens paying for the tariffs.
Yeah,
it was always going to be that.
Well, exactly, and he's doing good for us and making us a stronger, power in the world.
No, he's
going to bankrupt the fucking country in 6 months.
Just in business terms, if the price of a product increases for a company to buy it, then that company isn't going to swallow that increase. They are going to pass it on to the consumer, and that is exactly what a tariff is. It's an increase.
Of course, they're going to.
It's going to be passed on to the consumer.
Because Amazon has said they're going to do it this way, instead of just changing the overall price listing on everything to include the tariff, they're going to separate it so you know what you're paying on, right?
Absolutely, I agree with that.
It is now there's a public statement been put out by one of Trump's officials that this is a blatant attack towards the U.S. government because Amazon is in cahoots with someone in China that is big China.
Is that not the same in terms of, because I've never been to America, so I know you have the price that you see is not necessarily the price that you pay because there's a tax that goes on it at the till.
Oh, yeah.
So do they actually show you what that tax will be on the shelf itself? So you have the price. No. Nope. So you see, that to me, that's underhanded.
And think the taxes are all percentage based. It's not a flat tax for anything. So say I go buy a candy bar. Okay, cool. That might have a few cents of tax on it. That's not really going to bother me much. Mm-hmm. Go buy yourself a couch or a TV or something or a car. Yeah. You just added $1,500 in taxes or whatever, depending on how much you just spent.
Yeah.
See, at least with us, we obviously have tax as well, VAT, value added tax. At least with us, it's included in the cost.
Right.
Yep. The final price that you're looking at on the actual shelf. But, it would obviously there's times that you can get it VAT free, like if it's a medical equipment and you've got a medical need for that equipment, you can get it VAT free. But it'll show you 2 prices then in that sense. You'll get one with the VAT added and one with the VAT taken off, so you can see what both of them are. And
but at least it starts with the VAT added to begin with, so you know what your high end is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go. We went grocery shopping yesterday, right? Get your cart full of groceries, get everything you need, necessities, whatever. Okay, say it was $150 just for conversation's sake. Well, now it's $165 to $170 because you had to add all the taxes and everything, because not only do they feed us subpar everything as far as food goes, but everything that has sugar in it has an additional tax.
Oh, mind you, so does ours now. We've got a sugar tax. But
You pay extra for the
yeah.
chemical warfare. That's what it is.
Right. Well, exactly.
But you also pay tax on food.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't.
We don't.
Well, unless it's got sugar in it, like Coke, for example.
Mm.
Then there's the sugar tax.
But then they sell a smaller sized can or bottle of Coke at the same price as it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to get into the shrinkflation of things, Craig. I want to go. You know, there's always those random things you'll have. Be like, I haven't had this in how many years? And you go to the store. I'm going to see if they have it. I'm just going to grab it. Just 'cause I haven't had it forever. You know.
Yeah.
I wanted chocolate milk. So assuming I'm an adult that likes chocolate milk flavors, we're not going to get into that.
You're not on your own. I quite like chocolate
No,
milk.
nothing wrong with chocolate milk.
But as a kid, we didn't do chocolate milk. We did Ovaltine. Go to get a thing of Ovaltine because they still had it on the shelf. It is probably 2/3 the size container and easily doubled in price.
Yeah.
Easily.
That's because chocolate milk only comes out of brown cows, you know.
And strawberry milk comes out of red cows.
That's just given me a really, really lengthy
No, Craig,
memory.
strawberry milk is vegan.
When I was a teenager, I used to babysit for my next door neighbour, and she had 2 little boys, and the eldest one, he was very premature. He was born at 28 weeks. So it was a little bit sort of, it wasn't thick by any stretch of the imagination, but it took him a little while longer to catch up.
He was a bit like an American.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd got a bottle of chocolate milk, as it happened. And he said to me, he wanted some. He was only about 5-year-old at the time. And I said, okay, you can have a taste of it. He went, how do cows make chocolate milk? I said, well, what you have to do is you have to feed them a lot of chocolate bars and then you get chocolate. And he actually swallowed that. He completely thought I was not joking, not being sarcastic, not telling him the truth. And for years, apparently believed that to get chocolate milk, you had to feed them chocolate. Every time his mum drove past a field with cows in, he wanted to get out and feed them chocolate just to get chocolate milk.
And his name, children, was Donald. And Donald went on to become prime.
This is the other one that always gets me about Trump. Impeached, indicted, convicted. He's not allowed to be president.
Yeah.
But still hasn't pardoned himself, which I'm very surprised about.
Oh, that'll be his last presidential when he goes to his third term.
Yeah, he's got a few years left to deal with that, hasn't
he? Just in case, let's throw this one in there at the end.
Well, to be fair, it's no different than what Biden did with his son, is it? So
no, it's not.
Yeah, it's just it never sits well with me, the fact that they say, oh, he's a brilliant businessman. Well, if he was a brilliant businessman, why did he go bankrupt?
Twice.
Yeah.
You're all missing the point.
Back. You might have gone bankrupt, but the fact is, he's still not. He's no longer bankrupt. He's not been bankrupt for a lot of years. He bounced back and made lots of more money. So, is he a businessman?
By not paying his contractors, who then went bankrupt themselves.
Look on the bright side. It won't be long before you have your new leader. J.D. Vance will be taking over. There's a scary thought for you.
You had to bring it down, didn't you?
Yeah.
Who's the crazy SOB at 3 a.m. screaming to himself in the White House garden? Oh, it's just Vance. Leave him alone. He'll be fine in the morning. The moon's out, you know.
I'm sorry, but Vance, I'll tell you what, that man.
I still cannot get over the whole incident with Ukraine and everything. Cannot get over that whole incident with the interview and the way things were said, how they were said. No.
Do you know the comment JD Vance made that pissed me off most? What wars has the UK ever won? Okay, motherfucker. We've won nearly every battle we've ever been in. What the fuck have you won? What the fuck has America ever done? If you want to go down that one, bring it on.
If we were that bad, why does America always pull us into their shit?
Every time there's a war, who goes in first? Not America. We do. We're first in. America comes along and looks around the door frame going, is it safe yet?
Can we come in yet?
Well, you look, the one big war that America fought on their own, Vietnam, that was a success, wasn't it?
Well, they fucked that
Really?
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really successful.
Yeah, they didn't anticipate the network of tunnels under the ground, did they?
Yeah, that was the only war that America fought without British aid. Because even the War of Independence, it was the British fighting the British, really.
Mm.
The Americans must have won something at some point.
I think they won the Ryder Cup, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
I could say something, but it will anger every single person in chat and in this room right now.
Go on then.
Go on.
We got Nickelback. We'll be fine.
Ban the motherfucker. Oh, dear.
Oh, God.
You asked for that.
I did. I'll take
right. The Canadian.
I think G's about to rip your head off. G is now swearing at his computer screen in an nobody will be able to understand it because it'll be full.
Even I probably wouldn't be able to understand it either.
It'll be full Glaswegian. It'll be honestly.
Yeah.
Fucking Stickleback.
Oh, isn't it just typical though? American trying to claim something that isn't American is. That applies to most things, doesn't it? All the American inventions.
even the language. Because I did actually see something the other day that some Americans said, "Why do Brits speak English? It's an American language."
Yeah, I see that regularly.
You tell him, Melissa.
You know because I follow a lot of the questions on Quora, so I see that a lot about.
Yeah.
You know. Why can't the English speak properly? Why can't they spell things properly? We do. It's you that.
We do. It's you.
Yeah, this was actually a
aluminum. Back off! It's aluminium.
No, I want to get someone from the deep hollers of like Alabama and a certain Mancunian we know, and I want to put them in a room and I want to see what happens. I want to see if we can understand one word that is said the entire time.
Neither of them will. They'll be speaking two completely alien languages, never mind foreign.
Well, no, yeah, but if you think about this, they might come up between them with a new language.
I mean, it's a lot of grunts and clicks, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be anything of any use.
I find that offensive to the people that do speak clicking.
If you want to speak, just use the window in the back room.
Oh, is it?
You know, Craig, I get that I'm making that comment, but you have to say that.
Anyway, you're not proper American anyway. You're fucking Amish.
That and then the other side of the family from my biological dad's side is the side Melissa's from. That's the Whistler side.
You've got G on the rant.
What's he doing now?
In breaking news this week, Anthrax have still not released that latest CD.
He's just trying to get a bite.
I'm going to get a bill through one of these days. Here's a bill for my new screen, you twat.
Hey, Matt, on that Facebook, did you put a can of Iron Brew on there and just...
Oh.
Like I say, it's typical. Everything invented almost everywhere in the world except America, the Americans try to claim.
G, do your thing. If you can make it all the way here in a bus, I want to see.
Hey, G, anytime you want to come round, buddy, you let me know. I'll come and pick you up. Anytime. Oh. I don't suppose anybody's actually looked at anything vape-wise this week, have they? Nah, I didn't think so.
No.
Besides that,
Well, I can guarantee you I haven't.
No, Lisa
I'm
won't.
I'm not trying to spend $50-some for that RTA right now.
This is the trouble. That tax isn't proper going to screw you up on anything vape.
Oh yeah. Once old stock is out and new stock's all we have, it's going to skyrocket everything horribly.
Have you seen the latest one though? There was an agreement that if something was under $80, you didn't pay any extra taxes on it if you imported it. So when you bought stuff off Temu and that, you didn't pay any extra duty. They're now adding a flat $120 on those personal parcels from Temu. So you buy something for $10 or $15 and get $120 flat tax on it.
Jesus.
Hey, he's determined. I mean, being on a serious note, he is determined to wreck your country.
He really is.
Hey, honestly, I know there's backdoor deals being done to where after he's out of office, it'll benefit him and everything. We all know that. That's common sense. That's not even a question. But the issue is, like you said, how far down is he willing to damage the country in the process to where everything's worth? It'll be back in the days like, you're going to need a wheelbarrow to go buy a loaf of bread because that's how much it's going to take in money to actually go buy your loaf of bread.
You're heading
then
almost like Russia. That's all.
Yeah.
How it used to.
Right, yeah.
All socialists are equal. Everybody, we are all equal, apart from me, and I've got more money than you. And that's what Trump is doing.
It is.
Somebody shared I think it was mid-90s, because he defunded PBS and everything in the last week, right? So the Sesame Street, all stuff, all that, right? Well, there was a skit in the 90s that they did about Trump. Oh, I'll have to find it and send it to you guys. It was, did you ever hear about this guy named Donald? He's got more trash than anybody in the world. He's got more trash than, and he's going to have people come help him. These people are going to come help him, and then the skit changes to the Muppet version of Trump. I need 2 helpers. You come help me with all this trash type, so much trash. I'll even let you keep some of the trash, but just so you know, I'll have more trash than you at the end, so I'm still better than you.
Are you sure?
This was a Sesame Street skit.
Are you sure that Muppet was not actually Trump? Because it's hard to tell.
The similarity was there. I'll give you that.
Maybe JD Vance.
The hair was dead on. I mean,
do you ever see JD when they're talking side by side? Do you ever see JD Vance's right hand?
His left one's what I'm worried about.
Or is he controlling Donald? You know?
Mm.
I'm pretty sure it is.
At least the Muppets were funny.
And it made sense.
More sense than
Compared
Trump.
to Trump, yeah.
Well, think. The chef himself outsmarted him by at least 100 IQ
mate.
points.
I'm sorry, but the Swedish chef is legendary.
Mm.
There's certain characters from the you've got me and Bill in the Muppets, the two old men,
Oh yeah, I'll give you that.
moaning at the computer. If you ain't got anything good to say, I'll forget it. Just get on with it. Yeah, that's us too. You've got Animal in there.
Yeah.
Animal will always be a legend. Yeah, I love the Muppets. You've got Tyler in there, Beaker. Look at Beaker and then look at you. I'm telling you. It's
No,
the
I
same.
know. Don't start with me.
I'm waiting for Melissa to jump in and call you Beaker now. I'll turn your own family against you.
Mm.
We'll ban the Muppets on the grounds that it's sexist.
What was the reason he gave for defunding everything? It was another one of those they have an agenda type bullshit things.
What the
They're,
Muppets?
the whole station and everything. They're basically saying, because it had like the NPR, all that on there. Oh well, they're saying things against the president. They're saying things against this and that. So we're going to defund all that right now.
I feel threatened by the Muppets.
Mm.
What?
Surprised he hasn't banned The Simpsons yet.
It's funny. I live in the UK. I feel threatened by a
He
Muppet as
can't.
well.
He's not allowed to ban The Simpsons.
Yeah, I feel threatened
You
by a
can't, you can't ban me. I'm sorry, you just can't ban me.
Muppet.
Certain people don't get that. That's my name.
Mm.
Well, think about like Family Guy, stuff like that. Some of the stuff they've done in those. They've had Trump in how many episodes over the years? Taking the complete and utter piss out of him every single time.
If you go back through the history of like The Simpsons, Family Guy,
South Park probably had a couple.
Yeah, they did.
Mm.
There's loads of them. And you've had people like going back to Anthrax. You had Anthrax doing an appearance at one point in The Simpsons.
Green Day as well.
The Green Day they've had on. They've had all sorts of bands on The Simpsons.
Mm.
Barbra Streisand.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I think U2 were on as well.
Oh dear.
A good band there. Mm.
Every time I clap my hand, the child dies. Stop clapping.
Stop fucking clapping then.
I want to meet Bono in real life. I would love to meet him.
So you're going to America then?
Just so I could slap the bastard. Because I wouldn't punch him and waste breaking a knuckle. I'd slap him and knock him out instead.
The only thing I know about Bono was that South Park episode where he was the world's biggest shit.
The thing is, if you get like a show like that, putting you on as a character and taking the piss,
it actually does. It's usually good for you.
You kind of made it somewhere, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, like look at Weird Al when he first started doing everything.
Yeah.
Once he actually got to a certain level, artists weren't just, he's taking the piss up. No, you wanted him to, because your songs then got 15,000 more views per day because they wanted to hear both.
You go back through the Muppets, right? When it was the weekly show, I'm going back a lot of years. The Muppets had like they had a lot of famous musicians on the Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
Hell of a lot.
You had Buddy Rich on there, the drummer, doing a drum off with Animal, which still to this day is hilarious.
That
It's
is brilliant. Yeah.
I mean, Buddy Rich, whether you like jazz drummers or not, Buddy Rich as a drummer was unbelievable. Unbelievable, man.
David Bowie was on several times. Plus,
David
he made
Bowie.
2 films with them.
You had Alice Cooper.
Mhm.
Yeah, Alice did a few episodes.
That was funny because that was when Alice Cooper was at his top of his drinking habits.
Mhm.
So you've got a very pissed up and drugged up Alice Cooper on with the Muppets. It's fucking hilarious. Dave Grohl.
But I mean, half of the music industry at some point were either lampooned by or appeared on the Muppets.
Do you notice, out of all of the bands, there was a lot of metal artists went on there.
Hell of a lot.
The one group that they never had on the Muppets, or any, that I know of on any other show, really, Kiss.
I wonder why.
You secretly love a bit of Kiss. You know you do.
Only if I can't sleep.
Yeah, it works well. It
Well,
works
we got
well.
nightmares?
20 seconds in, I'm gone.
No, I've got to tell this story. Me, Lee, and Bill, none of us knew each other at this time. At the same concert, the same day, watching the same band, Kiss came on. All 3 of us fell asleep. What does that tell you?
And it's better than that because I actually was next to the speakers.
Oh, Kiss is on.
Fell asleep.
Rest of the concert, yeah, brilliant.
Brilliant.
Fuck
Yeah, we had Ozzy and Maiden on that year.
Yeah.
I was I was there for with Ozzy.
Shit, I still wish my mom would let me go to Ozfest when I was 12.
I hate to say it, mate. Nowadays, you're never going to see Ozzy for what Ozzy was back in his day. You're never going to see the real Ozzy. You've missed that boat, I'm afraid.
Well, think of it, that was 20 years ago.
You know,
Yeah.
Ozzy when he was the real Ozzy, not like he is now, bless him.
Ozzy up to the mid-90s was a force to be reckoned with live.
Unfortunately,
In the mid-90s, nah.
Unfortunately, Ozzy is now
A caricature.
He's past it, bless him.
Well, he's past it, and Sharon's just created a caricature of him.
Well,
God knows the levels of medicine that he gets just to keep him alive. You know,
it's
and how much. Right, first of all, yeah, and how much of that is not on his own behalf. It's because of what she said he needs.
Yeah.
Well, we got to keep him going. We can't let a legend die. That is not why you're doing this.
Look, the Aussie thing, the Aussie legend will never die because some of the shit he's done over these past years.
Well, yeah,
that will never go. But leave him alone. Let him just go away in peace and have the rest of his life. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, now they're back in UK as well. In terms of medication, they'll not get half of what they could get in America. Parkinson's, because it's all banned. Our medications for Parkinson's are completely different to the ones that you can get over in America. We only have about 3.
Yeah, even there's been short videos of Zach saying virtually the same, but in not so many words.
No.
He's got to be kind of careful.
He's got to be careful because he don't want to upset the hierarchy. At the end of the day, Sharon is in charge of everything to do with Ozzy.
Yeah.
and Ozzy and Zach are very close. How many times has he called them mum and dad? Like, if he upsets the apple cart there, then he don't get to see Ozzy.
Mind you, the way Sharon is looking.
Yeah, but that's self-inflicted. She's done that to herself.
Totally.
Got no sympathy for Sharon whatsoever.
Well, she's been through how many surgeries at this point?
It's not
You'll
even.
never know the real number.
It's not just the surgeries.
It was the Ozempic that she was on. She overdid it on Ozempic, went too far, and she's lost too much muscle.
Okay.
The muscle mass has disappeared because she didn't have the. She's never been fat. Sharon has never been fat. She were a bit chubby back in 80s, but she's never been fat. So certainly when she started taking Ozempic, she wasn't fat. And when you start taking something like Ozempic or tirzepatide, semaglutide, all these drugs that are meant for type 2 diabetics to help them control weight, because it brings your blood sugars down as well, it changes the way that you metabolize fat.
Yep.
If you haven't got any fat to metabolize, it starts going after your muscle.
Yeah.
She didn't have any fat, or she had very little fat, and it started going after her muscle, which has then drawn her in here, and all her arms don't have any muscle anymore, so she looks anorexic, let's face it. That's exactly what it's done to her. It's made her look anorexic.
Well, I mean,
and she can't get it back because she's too old to actually work and get the muscle to come back or to rebuild the muscle. It's permanent damage.
Yeah, in the UK, no responsible doctor would have ever given her it in the first place.
No, exactly.
But because she's got the money.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why. This is one of the reasons why people that actually need it, that are type 2 diabetic, that need to lose weight to help the diabetes, we can't get it on the NHS because there's too many private prescriptions being paid for. So there's a shortage of it. So the NHS are basically not supplying it because there's a supply issue.
I mean, that's why I've gone on to the tablet version of semaglutide, because it's the only one that can get hold of reliably.
Yeah.
Because it's the only one that doesn't only work on fat.
Yeah.
And it does a lot more, though, to control blood sugar.
Yeah. I mean, the difference between like the tirzepatide, which would be Mounjaro, and Ozempic, which is semaglutide, would be that they tend to give tirzepatide more to people that need to lose weight and less likely to need to lower the blood sugars, which is why under my current circumstances, the endocrinologist has said once they've diagnosed what's wrong with me, that would be the one that they will put me on, because it's less likely to alter. It will alter it somewhat, but it's less likely to give me hypos.
Yeah.
Under my current circumstances.
Whereas
you don't semaglutide,
that's going to push it that way.
Yeah, whereas semaglutide, they wouldn't put me on that because it's more likely to put me into danger. So,
are you doing like a Chinese person doing shock and awe, Lee, or supplies? All I've got in my head is a Lemmy joke now, rattling round in my head.
He does it all. Yeah, he does it. Whenever I say supplies, he goes, supplies. Never fails. Never fails. Even in text, even in text, it never fails. You just missed the jazz hands at the side of it. But
is there any news on anything going on in the vaping bans?
I've not heard anything.
No, not really, because it's gone to
Still
debate.
at Lords, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
but it's in. Saying about this earlier, I can never remember the name of things.
Bill's turned into Donald Trump. Well,
It's no longer on the main floor of the Lords. It's in
Committee? Or something
It's
like that.
where they make recommendations for changes before they send it back to the House of Commons.
It's at the committee stage.
Yeah. Because basically we think that it's bollocks.
yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is well out of line.
Unmanageable. Yeah. It's unworkable. It's unworkable, it's unmanageable, and it will cause problems.
One or two.
I still have to watch the full vlog from Grim from the other night, but it's same thing we always have. You've got reports coming out from different companies and different this and that. Oh well, you found this and this and there's no facts behind it. There's no studies behind it. There's no basis for information.
No.
Nope.
Keep
You know,
talking.
it's all popcorn lung and everything else.
Garlic break.
You know, and there are none of the medical studies that haven't been paid for by Big Pharma
or tobacco.
Tobacco, right? Exactly.
And in both cases, they are looking for anything possible to discredit vaping, which means they're doing everything they're doing everything they can to fuck it up.
The flavor thing is still obviously upfront as it has been for years and has been here and there, you know, but it's the same stupid argument. Well, if you're an adult and everything else, your taste should have changed. You shouldn't like candies and cakes and sweets and fruits and everything else.
Yeah.
I don't know a single vapor that on a daily basis says, okay, I'm going to get my coffee and bourbon juice out and that's what I'm going to use all day because those are adult flavors. And well, now you've got kids drinking coffee too. So would that turn that into an enticing flavor for kids now because their tastes are changing?
It just don't make sense. It don't make sense at all. Like, if you think it's being aimed at kids because of the designs, like you were saying, last week, change the design. Or, force them to put a simpler design that doesn't aim at cartoons and doesn't, not bright and colourful, but just a simple classic design.
Yeah.
Well,
problem solved.
I got handed this bottle of juice from somebody at work the other day because they didn't like the flavor of it. Not my profile, so I'll probably gift it to somebody else. But point of it being, this is not a kid-friendly label, but it can still stand for the same thing we're talking about, simplifying things a little bit. Make it to where it's
I will always
it's not a bad label, really. I wouldn't call that a child-friendly label, but I would call it, you could bring it down to a more simple text like that. As you got your company logo, your ratios, your flavors, you're done.
Company logo, the flavor is a basic descriptor. It's not some stupid name.
Yeah. To me, that label that Bill's just held up it's classy.
Yeah,
right.
It looks classy. It's
the bottle. Simple. I thought you were about Bill. I was going to say, fucking hell, you need to get some.
I would never call Bill classy. No. I would call Bill a lot of things, but classy would never be one of them.
No.
Raspberry blower of old Whitby Town.
I mean, as far as vaping goes, I don't vape myself, but I have vaped.
Yeah.
I'll always advocate for vaping because I smoked since I were a 13-year-old child, which now you understand why after tonight.
Yeah.
I think most of us started underage anyway, so I think.
Yeah, be honest, but I tried so many times to stop smoking. Sometimes it were a couple of weeks, sometimes it were a couple of years. I mean, we've all had a laugh at the story that I stopped smoking for 2 years using Champix, which was god awful stuff, but it did work for 2 years. Well, kept me off them for 2 years, and then I started smoking whilst I was on honeymoon again. Which, I mean, straight away, it's like, you know where that marriage is going when you start smoking on honeymoon. But it was 2014. No? Yeah, 2014, early February 2014. I swapped smoking to vaping with the intention of weaning myself off nicotine. This, you know, it would, for me, vaping was never going to be a permanent thing. And, you know, I've seen so many people saying, oh, they can't get off vaping because the nicotine is just too addictive.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that.
No, absolutely not. That's their own willpower, is that?
It is.
I spent 6 months. I gave up vaping completely in August of 2014, and what I did was wean myself off nicotine in my time.
Yeah.
Not in the NHS's time, not in smoking cessation clinics time. Yeah.
You know.
My own time. And what I would do is I would go almost through a bottle of juice, and then I would buy the next one down and start on that, leaving myself a little bit in the old bottle. Because there were times where I had to go back because I'd gone too quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I find is when I dropped a bottle, I would vape more naturally because I'm replacing a higher nicotine, so I would naturally vape more, and then it would start to slow down and I'd drop off to normal levels, and then I'd drop another bottle of nicotine. So I'd drop down, and I kept doing that until I got to zero nicotine. And when I got to zero nicotine, after 2 weeks, I started leaving my vape in the car.
Yeah.
So I didn't take it out on the street with me. It was in the car. So it was relatively close, but not there.
Yep.
Yeah. Then I started leaving it in the house. And there are times where I've been stressed and I've started vaping again for a day on zero nic, instead of going and buying a packet of cigarettes, which is what I would have done over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any of us would have. Yeah.
Yeah. A day of zero nicotine, and that's it. Problem solved. I'm back to normal. The reason that I don't do that anymore is the last time that I was at Expo, I had gotten into using CBD for anxiety. I have really bad crowd anxiety. If I'm in something like an expo, I need something to help me out. And I started using CBD on vaping. And I bought some disposable CBD vapes from one of the companies. Yeah. Oh my God, I was so ill. It put me on the floor. I could barely breathe. I was really bad for a long time and struggling. I thought I'd knackered myself up. I'll be quite honest. Even though I've gone through that, I would still advocate for vaping because that, to me, was a dodgy vape. It wasn't compatible with me.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that somebody else vaping that would have been, they might have been absolutely fine, but I wasn't vaping constantly. I was vaping sporadically when I needed to on the CBD, and that's what's caused my issue. This is why I say, if you've never vaped before and you don't smoke, don't start vaping.
No.
But I mean, the one that always gets me, they sit there and they go, oh, it's all child-friendly flavours.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Most of these flavours were created by vapors for them to use themselves.
So are we saying that if it's all child-friendly vapor flavours, that adults don't eat strawberries, that adults don't drink Fanta. You know, of course they do. These are not child-friendly flavours. These are basic flavours that everybody can get their hands on, and vapers just find them better than sort of tasting cigarettes. When you give up smoking, you don't want to taste cigarettes because your brain wants to then go and buy cigarettes.
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, at least the same reason, one of the big reasons that I was an advocate for me starting, obviously quitting smoking was I have food allergies. I have a very long list of food allergies. I have food coloring allergies. So I can't eat candies. I can't eat sweets. I can't do any of that.
Must be handy being American and having American food. No food.
Trust me, it's a pain in the ass. But imagine now I can go get a few concentrates and I can have a strawberry watermelon candy. I can have that flavor again, but it's not bad for me. It's not going to harm me because I'm doing it. Not in the same aspect.
Yeah,
we've all said it before. Vaping is not something you should technically be doing. You shouldn't be technically putting anything into your lungs, no matter what it is. Cigarettes, whatever. You are putting something in your body your body's not technically supposed to have. But over 95% difference, I'll take that data.
If you've been a smoker for a long time and you've done that damage to yourself and you want to get off it, then vaping to a smoker is far healthier than smoking cigarettes. And that's the point. Stop promoting it to non-smokers. It should only be used as a smoking cessation device. End of. Now, if that smoker decides to continue vaping like you guys do, then all well and good, it's still healthier than smoking. Or if you want to do what I did and use it as a complete cessation device and stop smoking and then stop vaping after you've weaned yourself off the nicotine, all well and good. You know, there's nothing wrong with either.
Look at how many people in the vaping industry are, have a history. They're past addicts or they've had, traumas and everything else. If they didn't have the hobby side of vaping and not just the smoke cessation part of it, they'd probably still be in those bad habits. You know,
I will still say if you take away the flavor aspect of vaping and just leave the nicotine aspect or tobacco flavors, certain basic tobacco flavors, you are going to put a lot of people back onto cigarettes.
Yep.
Guaranteed.
They will automatically go back to smoking.
Yeah.
But not only that, with all the increased taxes on cigarettes and all that sort of thing, people aren't necessarily going to be able to afford normal cigarettes. So you're going to go to one of these
market stuff.
Yeah.
Foreign markets, should I say. And they're going to buy the dodgy cigarettes,
And then what you're going to end up is people like I ended up, buying a dodgy vape, even though it were at an expo. It's come from China. I can tell you exactly where it's come from. It's come from China. China don't follow our rules.
No,
so you're going to end up ill. Because that's one thing that Expo doesn't do. It doesn't follow, it doesn't police what's coming in. It doesn't force, right, this is a British Expo. We have laws. We have TPD laws. You must follow those in order to showcase your products. It doesn't do that. So you get all these products.
So you don't want to know about your
6,000 puff vapes, which we know for a damn fine fact you would never get that many puffs out of 2 mils of liquid.
Yeah, and then you have certain reviewers that are actually reviewing them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get those questions from people that use disposables. Why do I use this big stuff? Why wouldn't I just go get, something like that to, use it that way? Like, well, in all honesty, I don't know what's in your juice. I don't know the quantities. I don't know the quality. I don't know what the wire's made of. I don't know where your cotton came from. It could have been someone's fucking dirty basement couch in China somewhere. I don't know, but I know it's in this.
You
I
like
know everything that's in this.
you like your cactus juice so you can have the taste of a prick in your mouth.
A little great prick, you know. Hey, but you know what? Think about that though. That is the reason that I can smoke it. I got a kiwi cactus dragon fruit liquid, and that became my all-day vape, and that's how I finally quit dual using.
Yeah. I mean, when I started vaping, the only thing I could easily get hold of and afford was cigarettes, and you only had two choices: menthol that ripped your throat out, or tobacco that made you want a cigarette to take the taste away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Literally, I actually smoked more for a while when I was vaping those, because I needed something to get rid of the flavour of those bloody awful tobacco juices.
God,
Well, and then
I mean,
think about the fixation issue with how they made those. I get they were trying to switch smokers off of smoking, but don't make my vape actually the same exact size and dimensions of a cigarette where I feel like I'm still smoking.
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was.
I mean, when I was using a cigarette, I even had people coming up and asking for a light because they seen the bottom of it lighting up.
See, I were a little bit later than that, so mine were one of those pen-style devices that had the cartomizers on top.
Those
C4, yeah.
Yeah, you just bought the new cartomizers and filled those with
Yeah.
whatever liquid you were filling until they were tasting like crap, basically, and then you binned them.
Yeah, to start with, though, in Whitby, the only cartomizers I could get were from Totally Ripped Off.
Yeah.
2 batteries,
Mine
2
were-
cartomizers, 85 quid.
Mine were from White Rose Centre in Leeds, and there were a stall in in the big shopping centres where they have stalls in the middle of like the rows rather than the shops. It were one of them. I think it was called VIP.
Yeah.
And I just bought one of their kits. Basically, I just went shopping. I worked next door to White Rose at that time, and I just thought, I'll go and have a look. And he said he were talking to, funny as it is, he were talking to me about flavours. And he was like, oh, he says, try this strawberry one. It's right nice. It's this one. I'm like, ew. Like, I don't want that. I smoked menthol cigarettes. That's all I smoked. And I'm just like, and you just got like a menthol flavour that I can have. And he's like, oh, he says, we do this menthol and that. I'm like, no, a normal menthol, like a cigarette menthol flavour. So it were a few months before I actually got into flavours as such. Well, I were on just normal menthol juice for a long time, but I never looked back.
I still remember. Petrol station the other side of town started selling a kit for £20. That was a battery and 2 Ego tanks.
Yeah.
And that was less than a quarter of the price of what Totally Ripped Off charged.
Yeah. I don't think mine were expensive.
And at that point, that was when I made the change. And I literally, in the space of 3 weeks, went from dual using to quitting smoking.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I first tried to vape, and that was 2011, 2012, when I first tried. I remember you actually had to go into the tobacco shop, into the cigarette outlet to get your vape gear.
Yeah.
If I went to the tobacconists, they were the same price as Totally Ripped Off.
See, we didn't have shops like that over here, at least not in my area back then.
Yeah.
But it was Dekang brought the kit out and they started putting it into petrol stations. And that was what got me to actually quit smoking. Was finally being able to use a decent I said decent. They weren't. They were bloody awful flavors. But at the time, compared to a cigarette, a decent flavor.
Yeah.
And it was enough to break the link between tobacco and cigarettes.
You know,
And to be fair, the devices weren't as powerful either, so it weren't like you were just getting completely flooded by that flavour.
Think about the wicking too. It was all silica wick. You couldn't push your power without having one.
Yeah.
There's a dare for you next week. Get some silica wick and do 200 watts on silica wick. I dare you.
You know, I saw a reel on YouTube earlier. I was going to send it to you guys, but honestly, I didn't want to send any more views to this guy's channel. He's got over 600 million views. They're almost all short version videos, and it's all mostly disposable crap and one of those people, you know.
Yeah.
Didn't say where in the world he was from, but it was all, I can't remember which language it was. It might have been French or something to that aspect. This guy, to make this video, had a dead rabbit on Dual 1860 mod, right? He's pulsing it, and there's fire shooting out of the fucking drip tip.
Oh, well, I can do that.
Well, I know you. That's why I thought about you. But he took the top cap off. I don't know how you got cotton and coils to look like that. First of all, I've never seen coils get to that degraded of a. It was bad. So he shows re-wicking it, pulls it all, all the cotton out and everything, starts glowing the coils, and then for some reason takes his bottle of juice, and as he's heating the coils up, he's cooling it back down with the e-liquid. So essentially caramelizing the liquid right onto your, unwicked coils, and then going to wick it and reuse it.
What an idiot!
You see, Steve's talking alien to me there. I ain't got a clue what he's talking about there.
If you want to see,
oh, the baby.
That Tech 60 was the old E-Leaf.
Yeah. If you want to see the video that Tyler is on about, simply go to Vaping with Vic.
Oh shit! Oh, sorry. Damn.
AKA the Clueless Vapor.
Yeah,
I almost want to watch that review of that disposal, because I want to see how he put that in a positive light after all the talking against it all these years.
Well, no, he'll do what he always does. It just sort of it vanishes out of his memory. Yeah.
No.
Yes, I swore again. I can't ban myself. Yeah.
I would almost subscribe to Vic again on YouTube just so I could go into a private chat and insult him again.
I mean, like I said, I have had comments over the last few months on his Facebook stuff, but I just leave it be because it's honestly kind of entertaining to see the stupidity that comes out.
Oh, there is some great stupidity. There is some unbelievable stupidity, members of his group.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I don't watch any of them anymore.
Yeah, it's not worth watching.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't remember if it was his group or not. There was somebody last week that was asking if it was possible to wash their sub-ohm coils to reuse them.
Yes.
Yeah, because
yes, but unless you're in that dire straits, just go get yourself a new pack. See something like boiling them and everything else.
Why would you? Oh yeah, I know.
If your coils are made of stainless or Ni80, you can wash them. If they're made of Kanthal, they'll go rusty as they're drying.
And most are Kanthal for that fact. Yeah.
Yeah. If you've got an iron shortage, you can vape the iron then. I mean, it won't do you any good. You'll end up really ill. But...
Yeah.
I can't use
exactly, G. Ooh, cancel.
It's all right, G. So do I.
Wire or something that people used to try to mess with.
Go to nichrome or stainless.
Yeah.
Oh, G, you will
I've
be
still
happy.
got Cantle.
I put a new order in. We are back to building as soon as on the days that I am not completely knackered from work and I have time. But we are back to building.
We're total wire spools, yeah.
Only got a couple spools. I only bought 15.
No, there were total wire spools.
I would show you the label on them, but besides their spooled wire, I don't really want to advocate for the company, so we'll leave it where it is.
Oh, he's buying the Cape stuff off AliExpress.
No,
It's the he's got a job lot of the UD wire.
Grease UD wire.
He's gone even better. He's gone Alibaba Demon Killer wire.
Oh.
I still have something. Hold on.
It's so easy to trigger, Tyler. It's so easy.
Mm.
If fishing was this easy, I would take it up as a sport. Honestly.
There we go. I knew I had an old spool somewhere. You're going to love this one. G will get mad at this one too.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Old crazy wire.
We've all used crazy wire in the past.
Yeah, I've still got spools of crazy wire.
I couldn't tell you how old this is. I still have a giant spool of 36 gauge from them. You cannot vape this stuff. You just can't. It tastes horrific. I don't care how you clean it. I don't care. It's horrible. And then if you make decent like aliens out of it and you go to get your color off of them, you can tell the alloy is shit because you're getting spots of color. Instead of an even like rainbow, you're actually getting dots throughout the color.
You know why it is? Crazy Wire sold all their rejects to America.
Mm.
No, this actually, when I got this, I ordered this from the UK. This was years ago.
Yeah, but they saw American. They went, oh, where's that cheap shit? Where's that box of crap?
Oh, trust me, the
Where's
school
that stuff you sent back
so
to
knotted.
I've still got a couple of spools of crazy wire alien, which is flat.
Yeah, I've got some.
I still remember when I first started vaping and I got a hold of, thank you, Craig,
Oh.
totally pre-made
Oh.
wire. But
Hold on a second.
They called it like a frame staple or something like that. Well, obviously, brand new to building, you don't know what's in a frame staple. So I looked everything up and everything. Tell me why, when you took the wrap wire off of it, it had 2 outer cores, but then it was full of, I couldn't tell you how many pieces of like 36 gauge, just twisted 1,000 times as the inner cores.
Yeah.
Not a single piece of fucking ribbon in it.
As Gene said there, if you were a UK customer and have used them a few times, they did actually send the decent quality wire. Oh, God.
God.
I still use an old one to put on my builds.
Yeah. You buy one of those, use 3 coils out of it, and the rest of them will sit there for eternity.
Some of the names they had for
those. I think most of them are all full.
Well, Greg, install a set, wick them up, and let us know how it is.
You can use the damn method if you want.
Yeah, it's the damn I shouldn't have bloody used them.
Unevenly.
It's
like,
like,
I mean, fire them at about 60, 70 watts like it does. Think the coil.
but I've got these which are Master. But they actually spent the money and bought Sandvik wire for their handmade coils.
But they don't beat Amish-made coils, Bill. They just don't beat it.
Gee, just stop.
It's getting your horse to move fast enough on the treadwheel to spin the white coils up.
Gee, why don't you just stop fucking about and go back to coil building?
He still had your original coils? Wow.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Wow.
Somebody else is getting banned in a minute.
No wonder the vape cover keeps opening its up and spilling everywhere. He's still got that shit hanging around.
Yeah.
You do realize even the oil will have gone rancid on those.
They say stainless, but they rusted for some reason.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a bit of use for you.
Gee, short term, if you can't find, because I know swivels to get the right ones can be kind of a pain in the ass depending where you're at. I actually, until recently, because I started doing staggered builds again, which you obviously have to have a swivel for, I've been using magnets. Literally, I've got 3 magnets on top of each other, a ball bearing in the center of it, and then you just take flat washers and wrap your wire around that, and don't. I mean, obviously, tension you got to worry about a little bit, but for classic alien builds, it works.
The Cow's Irons ones were fucking awesome. The swivels that Cow's bit, you could literally, you could turn your drill up to like 12,000 RPM. It would just spin. Unbelievable. They were fucking gold.
Yeah.
I haven't spoke to Cows for ages. Not for ages. Really nice bloke as well.
But if you're really careful shopping on Amazon, you can get some stainless steel ball bearing swivels with
Yes.
with clips.
I've got a pack here.
And if you buy the cheap ones, yeah, they're crap. But if you buy the decent ones, they're actually really good ball bearing swivels.
And if you use UD wire, it's pre-oiled.
Yeah, so are your walls as soon as you hit the trigger on the drill.
Oh, fuck.
Took me ages to get that oil off the ceiling.
Fucking UD. Oh.
Their wire is just about the worst wire.
It's when you build a core
anywhere ever. It was watching Mank make a pair of coils out of that, and he hadn't cleaned the wire before he wrapped the coils.
Well, he hadn't.
The best part is he called himself a builder because he wrapped a round wire coil. Poorly, very poorly.
Let's all do a round wire build, Mank style.
I could put the coin jig in my drill and do it faster.
I'll do one right now. And this was for a mech. Have a look. There we go.
Nah, they're too tidy. That's too tidy.
Hold on. I need to do it, make it a bit more Mank.
You've got to push it in at least 2 directions. That's it. That's a Mank coil.
And that's what he was building. And he said it was for a mech. I was like, There's going to be an explosion.
The way it looked like how Vic does his spacing of coils bullshit. Sits there and sticks his nails.
Did you notice
too
how
much.
long it took him building it, though? It was like... So you only need to do 5 wraps. We're going to be here for a week.
He did it
The
like
problem was he had to take his socks both off because he only has enough toes to get to 5 total. So he had to 1, okay, the other foot 2.
Good old Nick Devine.
Speaking of that, G, have you heard anything from Nick recently? I keep checking his stuff to see if he pops up with anything, but I haven't seen. Well,
He's busy with
what
what he's busy with.
I know back the last time I saw him doing lives, he was having some issues with work going back and forth. And then he was with that girl and that whatever had happened with that. And
I haven't spoken to Nick for an age. I really haven't.
yeah.
I like Nick Devine.
Shoot, another one I found random. I was looking at build tours the other day for old builds that I haven't done in forever. Kenny Reese.
Oh God, Kenny.
There's one for you. We used to do. I believe it was me, him, G, and Nick, and whoever else jumped in. Used to do the game nights during COVID.
Yep. Kenny always came across in his videos, right? His pre-recorded stuff.
Hey, that's all I wanted to hear, G. As long as he's doing well for himself, I mean, dude, you're personally come for anything else.
Kenny always came across as a bit of a dick in his videos pre-recorded.
In his pre-recorded, yes, but if you actually got into a Zoom room with him and everything, he was different.
But when he did a live, different guy.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird. It was proper.
But then he also went down that same path. He tried to slowly transition to disposables, and then the channel just stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I don't care who says it's the better option. I'm not doing this no stretch alien bullshit.
Yeah.
At least you did not put that coil into something, Matt.
Do you honestly think it's going to sound like that if I had?
No.
And it's not going to be flavour like that gives off. And just a blast from the past for you, G.
And he had to put it on that mech. Of all the mechs he could have put it on.
Well, of course.
Still love it. Get the right size coils in. Yeah. Right, as we are now 2 hours and 47 minutes into a show, shall we call it? You're fucking old well. Shall we call it an evening?
Probably wise.
I didn't. Well,
If not, another topic's going to start up and we're all going to keep going.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am not doing a full G show.
Let's not turn this into.
Well, how long did you do last night?
2 hours talking.
About 4 hours. It's not once you get chatting about shit. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's just like you're having a laugh with your mates. You don't really think it's a live show. It really doesn't. Yeah.
Well, once the show gets
And-
going, you're waffling with your buddies, you know.
And we were only 2 hours and 10 minutes before Theo came down and got a drink out from me.
Wow.
And he didn't annoy me either.
I was going to say
He must have been.
You haven't had a
No.
slap on the head or anything.
No. He came down, grabbed my drink, had a sip of my drink, and then buggered off back out.
Okay, what's in the drink, Craig?
How much did you?
Ice. Well, ice
All right.
that's melted.
What did you put in the ice?
No, it was normal frozen cubed ice that we bought from Sainsbury's.
Was
What
it
you
ice
can't
from
see,
Hawaii by any chance?
It wasn't the
Outside the
frozen
door out
foam,
the
though.
room is Theo like
Mm. No, just normal ice.
Right, I shall let you, ladies and gentlemen, do your goodbyes. Whoever wishes to start.
I'll start. Thanks, guys, for having me on and inviting me. It's been an evening, shall we say?
Always
Hmm.
is.
I think we've managed to tackle quite an important subject and have a laugh with some other subjects at the same time.
Mhm.
I've enjoyed it. It got a little bit emotional at some stage, but I have enjoyed being on. So thank you. What I will say is exactly what my T-shirt says: "Don't fight your demons, recruit them."
Yep.
That.
I'll
Like that.
pass that to Craig.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for joining us. A very good topic this week, I would have said. Because mainly living further away down here, up in Scotland, wouldn't necessarily have known what all had happened. Takes a lot of courage for you to say what's happened with you as well. Just to say the group is there if anyone is struggling as well. We'll be back next week. I'm at Expo, should be back in time. If not, I'll see you the following week. But have a good week. Thanks for joining us, and I'll pass that on to Tyler.
Thank you, Craig. Well, as always, everybody knows the group is there. You guys need us, contact somebody. We've said it before, say it again. I'd rather hear from you and listen to you waffle and complain for 12 hours straight than get a message tomorrow that I'm not going to talk to you tomorrow. So you know what? You need us. You know where we are. Again, Lisa, thank you. Thank you for coming on. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate your, like Craig said, the strength to talk about certain things and your insight on things like we didn't know about. Because simply without first-person perspective, we wouldn't know about it. You know,
He's turning it into Oprah Winfrey again.
You get a car. You get a. Oh.
Not a Jeep, though.
That'd be cheaper. Okay, you get a Jeep.
No fucking Jeep.
Not a Jeep. Not a Jeep.
Everybody have a great week. And yeah, that's it for me this week, everybody. Bill, say your goodbyes, man.
Yeah, cheers, Craig. Cheers, Tyler. Thank you very much, Lacey. It's been great to have you on here today.
You're welcome.
And you do have a different perspective to the rest of us on it all.
Yeah, an accurate one. The rest of us idiots, you mate.
Well, I was going to say having a personal view of it because none of us were in the main areas for it. So everything we saw was secondhand.
Yeah, very true.
So your input more than appreciated. I think it was essential. Which, as has been said, anybody needs us, you know where we are. None of us aren't reachable. Have a good week, everybody. Over to you, Matt.
Not really a lot I could say that you guys haven't already said. Yeah, Lisa, thank you for coming on. It has been. It's been interesting because it does, like the guy said, it's a different take on it. You're hearing it from a more accurate source. If we go on what the media tell us, which don't ever do that, people, for fuck's sake.
No.
Get it from like at a more accurate place. And if somebody's around that time, then that's pretty fucking accurate. If anybody does have any problems with grooming, know somebody who's been caught up in that or been sexually assaulted, There are obviously professional people to talk to. Please go and get some fucking help. Please, because if you just leave it and don't do anything, what's going to happen is it will just eat you alive.
Yeah.
It will, and it will end.
Just on the back of that, just keep your eye out for those 5 stages of grooming that I mentioned earlier. If you notice any of that at all in any of your loved ones, please, try and get them some help.
Yeah. And I think the thing is with kids, the only people who can protect kids nowadays, unfortunately, even though it should be the police, and some do, we can't rely on the police, it appears, always. We certainly can't rely on the government. So it comes down to family and friends and keeping an eye out for each other. And I'm not advocating that people should go out and attack the nearest person who looks like a Muslim. No. What I'm saying is, if you think there's something that you might see as grooming going on, try reporting it. Maybe something will get done. If it doesn't, obviously contact the parents anyway. And keep an eye out for those 5 signs of things. And of course, the online stuff, the Facebook.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on your children's Facebook, because that's one of the worst things. People allow children to have Facebook at younger and younger ages. And you don't know what people they're talking to, sadly. But on the upside, we will be back next week. Or maybe that isn't an upside for some people, I don't know. But we will be back next week. We'll see how Craig has got on at the massive expo he's going to. And the 2 people he'll probably see there. But anyway, and yeah, we'll be back next week. So for now, we'll say goodbye. And we shall see you all soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good week.